Okay, and the fourth and final point. I ain't judging black women publicly anymore.
I said what I said. I said what I said. I said what I said.
Black women in my book, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, baby, but black women can do no wrong to me. Hello and welcome back to my channel, family. My name is Raven, therapist, thought leader, and theologian, and I am always so excited to have you here with me today. Let's get right into all of the things because I have so much to say, and if you clicked on this video, then you know what the gist of it will be about. Well, actually, you may not, because you probably are thinking, I've watched a few of this girl's videos and that title don't look like nothing she would typically say, especially because it's almost completely contradictory to everything that I've previously said in different videos that I've done. But fret not, little one, because that just means that I am evolving and we are evolving as a channel. And don't worry, I'm not going to completely contradict everything I said in the previous video. However, I am going to add a little bit more nuance. Not to say that I didn't do that previously, but we are continually evolving and I want you guys to evolve with me. So all that being said, today we're going to talk about why I was wrong about my sexy red take. Ciao. What the kids do? Ciao. I know. It's a shocker for me too. Not so much though, because actually, if I give some real context when I start playing on this good Beyonce's internet this afternoon, I don't necessarily feel different or contradictory from how I used to feel back in the day with regard to my take on Sexy Red. And if you're unfamiliar with it, I'll just plug in a bit right here.
You know why we gotta get rid of Sexy Red? Let's keep it a buck. You know why we gotta get rid of that junk and everything that she represents? Because love you, sister. That's my sis. Every one of these girls who coming up with this ratchet, stupid, dumb music, they're all my sisters, and I love them deeply. They're just gone astray right now. And we gotta figure out a way to reel them back in. You doing this because of money? Because I know you grew up in the hood and you didn't grow up with a lot of stuff, so you need money. And so sometimes when you need money, you're willing to do desperate, terrible, horrible things to get some money. Even like sell your soul. And you don't even got to go into that spooky Illuminati mess. I ain't even talking about that, because sometimes we overcomplicate what it means to sell your soul. No, she sold her soul, meaning I'll do whatever it takes to get money, even if that means talking about pink pussy at a school event in front of children. And then what do we all do? Just kind of parrot it, right? We just all parrot it because, okay, well, it's the time. That's what the kids is listening to. So I guess we just kind of gotta, cheap, ignorant. Again, but I'm not mad at people. I'm mad at the experiences. I'm mad at what the world produces. So I'm not angry at people. I'm not calling you out. I'm calling you in.
To the culture. So it doesn't disturb you that Sexy Red is actually being corrosive, but rather that people are taking note of the fact that she's corrosive to the culture.
Yeah, I think my take was right. And it's not necessarily even about Sexy Red per se, if I'm being honest. I think she is an archetype that I feel evolved feelings about. And I realized that my commentary, my thoughts, my perspective was feeding into a vitriolic narrative about black women, and more specifically, it was feeding into a moral grandstanding take that was so extra and so tired, and it's kind of lame, if I'm being honest. I do think it was necessary commentary, and I do think the critique and the backlash that people like her and artists like her were receiving is not that it's illegitimate or unjust, but the voices that were doing it and the reasons why they were doing it, I think those needed to be explored a bit more. And it's not that I didn't even understand why they were, who those voices were and why they were saying what they were saying, but I think I was coming at it from such a moral place and from such a good-intentioned, well-intentioned place that I was thinking my voice would easily be able to be separated from the sexist, the misogynist, the people who hate black women and hate women in general, and the patriarchal, problematic group of people that we've seen rise on the internet these days. So I thought that my takes were as nuanced as they needed to be so as to make sure I was separate from them. But then I quickly found that the cesspool that is the internet will make sure that anything that you say that is anti-black woman, even if it's not necessarily anti-black woman, will fall into that garbage receptacle, if you will. And I ain't trying to do that. So today we're going to give a more nuanced take about why I was wrong about Sexy Red. And again, this video, I want to be clear, It's not about Sexy Red per se. It's about this archetype and the evolution of my own personal politic, particularly because I wrote a book about this stuff, just about the improvement of our pop cultural zeitgeist. I wrote a book about that and how it's impacting us personally, morally, etc. And I want to make sure that if people read my book, which you still should because it's a phenomenal book, it's not political. The case for mass divestment from pop culture, you should buy it wherever you can buy your books. But in case you read that in the future, or if you engage with any of my content right now or in the past, or you're planning on doing that, I want to make sure that you guys have a healthy understanding of my position and don't loop me into the cesspool that is manosphere content, anti-woman content, patriarchal content, red pill content, all of the God bless the babies, all of the problematic content that we are just inundated in. I don't want to be lumped into that. So I'm going to give a bit more nuance to my position. Okay? Let's get started. I just want you all to take notice. You see what I did there? I didn't call her out. I called her in. And I got frustrated with her willingness to be used by propaganda machines in the media to further stupid narratives and hypersexualized narratives about Black women and about Black culture in general. And it's just disgusting and degrading at its core. I still stand by that. Nevertheless, the first reason why I am evolving my take on this and doing this video to bring more context to it is because I think our vitriol and our frustration needs to stay and remain with corporations that choose to exploit Black poverty and Black struggle. So I'm from the same city that Sexy Red is from. As a matter of fact, I'm literally filming this video in that space, right? In St. Louis, Missouri. And the frustrating thing that I know about and have always known about our city is that it's immensely impoverished along the racial lines particularly, and a great majority of the Black people that live in the city are on the poverty line, or if not very close to it. And obviously that's not everybody that is here. However, it is extremely frustrating when you think about just how much the Great Divide, we even have this thing called the Delmar Divide right down in North City.
If we look at one zip code just north of Delmar Boulevard, over 95% of the residents are Black, while the neighborhood just south of it is only 33% Black. The homes on both sides of Delmar also tell their own story. Average home values just north of Delmar come in at over $65,000, whereas the average home values south of Delmar skyrocket to $269,000. And some of these properties are just a few blocks away from each other.
What the city of St. Louis, whether it's the police or the government, they respect those that spend money. Since you all been around, you haven't seen any police ride around. Now let's go on the other side of Delmar. They watching everything. You got Forest Park, the #1 park in America. They're gonna have to do something. They're gonna have to do some major things.
Delmar Boulevard represents what minorities have had to struggle with for decades in St. Louis, and how that haunting past has yet to go away.
The poverty in this city is so stark amongst the Black community, and it was orchestrated that way. It wasn't by accident. My brother often says there isn't a poverty gene. It's not like Black people cross country really just were born and we're like, okay, we're just lazy and don't want to work and we just don't have money, and white people just so happen to have all of the resources. Obviously that isn't the case. The wealth discrepancies and injustice that exists here was all orchestrated. White flight was the cause behind some of it. Some of it is due to intentional economic development being stripped away from where Black people resided. Some of it had a lot to do with industries leaving. Some of it had a lot to do with globalization. And all of these factors, more particularly though, an intentional divestment from black majority areas and intentional investment into white majority areas, which caused, in layman's terms, once the white people left, then the dollars left. And so Black people have consistently been thrust into these ghettos, these impoverished areas and impoverished neighborhoods, and forced to be what we often call, and I hear it a lot in our city, crabs in a bucket, forced to be in this crabs in a bucket mentality. And again, this is cross city. You can see the similar patterns in Detroit. You can see similar patterns in Ohio, even Philadelphia, a lot of our urban cities. It's called more specifically urban blight. Now, what does that have to do with Sexy Red, right? Well, Sexy Red is a part of this circumstances. Sexy Red grew up in the same sort of areas that I'm referencing right now that were intentionally divested from, and where people were literally forced to live in desolation and abject poverty. And what does this, of course, produce? Let's be real. It produces a desperation. It produces a desensitization to wellness and well-being and wholeness as a person. And now, am I making the case that Sexy Red or all of the family and friends that she's accustomed to or grew up with don't necessarily have wellness and happiness and joy? No, that's not necessarily what I'm saying. However, what I'm saying is, if you grow up in a city like this and you see this stuff, you'd be struggling too, and you'd be hard pressed to find wellness and have healthy mental health and have healthy circumstances around you. And I think she speaks about that in some of her lyrics as well. That sort of an environment just does not produce, or it would be hard pressed to produce, happiness and joy and thriving. And so that speaks nothing about the people more than it does speak everything about the environment and the intentionality behind how they got in that environment. And record companies, they see that, they find that, and they enjoy that, and they know that white kids who don't have access or opportunity to be in that space but so long to tap into this shadow version of themselves that knows struggle and knows difficulty and be in the hood without being in the hood, or be adjacent to the hood without necessarily even being adjacent to it. White record companies, white executives know this, and so they exploit it, and they throw a few dollars, even though they throw a few dollars, and they throw these artists who come from these desolate places into these exploitative music contracts so that they can exploit them for a few songs to make some white kids and some black people, to be fair, and all people shake their butts a little bit and go right back to the same state of desolation. That's disgusting, and that's where I should have placed all of my furor, rather than even being remotely angry or upset with Sexy Red, because if I'm being honest, or people just like her, because if I'm being honest, I was for such a long time. But you can't in one breath say these people have struggled and these people come from vast amounts of ignorance about what's healthy and what's best for them and what's necessary for them. I can't in one breath, and even that actually I recognize that it's problematic, but you can't in one breath say that these environments produce a level of ignorance and problematic behaviors and have that be true, and also then in the next breath be true that, oh, but they need to make better choices. You can't have it both ways. And so it's not that I didn't have the anger or vitriol toward record companies who exploit poverty and struggle, but rather I kind of divvied out my vitriol, if you will, some for them and some for the artists. And that's problematic. Either you're going to have the politic and you're going to stand firm on the impetus and the origin of these problems, or you're not. So that's step one. I am revoking that, and I'm giving all the smoke to the record label. And Larry Jackson, yes, I still got all the smoke for you, period. Okay, mention that black women have it difficult, extremely difficult. Obviously, that doesn't absolve black people's struggles as a whole, but right now I'm specifically talking about black women. The degree to which black women have been thrust into Crooked Room, which we know we reference all the time on this channel by Melissa Harris Perry. The Crooked Room essentially is the case that we've been set in this literal room that's crooked, right? Like that's turned kind of sideways and asked to stand up straight. And so then once we can't stand up straight, then everybody's looking at us like we're crazy. Well, no, the room is crooked, right? And we've been trying to make sense of it and almost made to feel as if we're crazy for not being able to stand up straight. So that in mind, black women have been placed in this crooked room and have been told that something's wrong with us when we resort to social degradation. We've been thrust into degradation, but then we are told that something's wrong with us when we give into that environment, when we only know and only engage with and only find pleasure and joy in degradation, social and economic and otherwise. That's problematic. And so we need to just shift. I needed and am actively shifting my ire away from black women in general and moving it more towards the accurate spaces where it needs to be, the places where we can actually see systemic change. Because being mad at a black girl for shaking her ass on a camera and saying that, oh baby, you need to do better, you need to see better, you need to make better choices, and meanwhile better choices are literally nowhere in the room with her. And to the degree that you say, well, yes, they are, because we all have access. We've seen the respectable black women. We've seen the Michelle Obamas. We've seen the black women can just make a different choice. Watching somebody on TV aspire and rise to a certain degree of respectability in the space or in the culture is a completely different thing from being in proximity to those people, right? Because we're so accustomed to having these parasocial relationships with people online and on TV and elsewhere, we forget the fact that it is still the people in proximity to us that influence and impact us the greatest. No matter how close we feel to the people online, no matter how much community we find and build online, it is still the human to human contact, the basic everyday engagements that we come into contact with every day that shape and influence our perspectives about ourselves. Now, is that to say that online media and media in general doesn't play a part in our self-perception? Absolutely it does. But again, that goes back to that first point, which is that corporations and executives know that we are already in desolate situations. Many Black people, should I say, and many young Black women are in general are in desolate situations and are very impressionable, just like any young person would be at that phase of life. Young people, and right now I'm speaking in reference to young people, they are extremely impressionable minds, and these corporations know that and they recognize that, so they do everything in their power to continue to exploit that for profit and for gain. And then some, if you're a conspiracy theorist, would say for the means of keeping the Black race down. Again, that's not the argument that I'm necessarily on today, but I won't say that it's a far cry from truth, right? If we were to dig a bit deeper, you should read my book, and it's not political, the case for mass divestment from pop culture. You'll see that there are influences within media, whether it be the CIA, there are external influences in media that play a role in what's portrayed on television, who gets pushed to the forefront of the algorithm online. These are all orchestrated things by white men in the background. So again, regardless of whether or not you want to say that there's some big conspiracy around corporations trying to keep Black people down, you can't deny that there are, at a very minimum, white executives behind, pulling the strings behind a lot of what you consume in corporate media. And there's something to be said there. Black women have always been portrayed in this hypersexual ways, in ways that completely misrepresent the beauty and essence of who we are. Is it that twerking is bad? Is it that shaking your ass and having fun and having a good time in the ways that are unique and particular to Black women? And I say particular because we're the ones that orchestrated twerking. We're the ones that orchestrated shake your ass music, and music that make you feel good and want to dance and twerk and grind and do all the fun things in music and creativity. We're the ones that orchestrated that. So am I saying that there is something inherently wrong with that? Absolutely not. And I want everybody to hear me clear, because I think this is where people got misconstrued about my public position. I think it's beautiful, and I love a good twerk and a good fun and a good shake and shimmy. And I sound old, but you know what I mean. Every now and then, I absolutely love it. But there is also something to be said about the fact that we should be mindful of what our young people are consuming, not for the sake of trying to push them more towards respectability, but rather to protect and safeguard their impressionable minds and make sure that the way that we're curating the world for them is curated in such a way that prepares them to contend with social ills, contend with sexuality, contend with thoughts about the opposite sex or sex in general in ways that are healthy and age appropriate. And when I say age appropriate, meaning developmental age appropriate. Just because everything is so easily accessible doesn't mean that everybody is ready to have access to that thing. This is just with the advent of social media and internet in general that we've really seen young people be able to get their hands on things that just may not be age appropriate, developmentally age appropriate for them. And we have to be able to have an honest conversation about that. Which leads me to number 3. There is a difference between respectability politics, or trying to be the respectable Negro, and upholding and respecting age appropriateness and acknowledging age appropriateness. And if we don't create the distinction between those two things, we run the risk of letting these corporations truly have full access to our health and well-being and doing further harm than they've already done, or that they're already planning on doing and actively doing as we speak right now. All I was just making the case for is kids should be still doing kid things. Does that change and evolve as time progresses? Yeah, absolutely. But and I just mean it changes in the sense that what is available, what's accessible, what we know and understand and have access to, all of that obviously changes over time. The kids back in the day, I was just talking to my uncle when I was out of town. He's like 70 right now, I'm sure, 70, 80, something like that. And he was talking about how he they would play with sand and dirt or something, that man was saying. And I was like, child, how did y'all even have a fun time at all? But that was specific to his era and what they had access to, versus now kids have access to a wealth of things that back in the day adults would have never even dreamt of. So does it evolve? Does our access and what we play with and what we find enjoyable evolve over time? Absolutely. But what doesn't evolve over time is age appropriate development. The brain develops in the way that it develops, right? Okay, and the fourth and final point, I ain't judging Black women publicly anymore. Black women in my book, I'm sorry, baby, but Black women can do no wrong to me. That is not to say that I absolve them of wrongdoing, but rather publicly, Black women can do no wrong for me, especially in the cultural zeitgeist that we've inhabited right now, or that many of us cultivated. We don't have time. We don't have time to be critiquing Black women in the public. The only thing that we have time to do right now is to be trying to dismantle patriarchy, misogyny, problematic systems that have been cultivated by men who hate women, men who hate humans oftentimes, and men who have cultivated problematic perspectives in general. So I just don't have the time or energy to be publicly condemning Black women. Again, am I saying that Black women are perfect? Of course not. And if that's what you're hearing, then clearly you're not trying to hear me in the first place. So I'm not saying that Black women are perfect. I'm saying I'm not lending my voice, my perspective, my intellect, my scholarship, the time and effort that we so desperately need to be dismantling all the other problematic things that are actively killing, harming hundreds of thousands and not millions of people as we speak. So because of that, I'm not lending my voice to critiquing a people group that have historically already been critiqued and condemned by every corner of the planet already. I'm just not doing it. So I'm going to critique systems. I'm going to continue to critique systems. I'm going to continue to critique problematic people in power who make it their business to oppress and condemn and subjugate people groups like Black women. And to the degree that I feel for even minimally some of the propaganda that, oh, we all just need to come together and we just need to condemn and move back to a more conservative society where this people group is more subdued and that people group is more uplifted because that's the social order that needs to be upheld. To the degree that I even minimally fell victim to that, forgive me. And also, I hope that you'll continue to evolve with me and hear my perspective and hear my heart in all of my perspectives and not just dismiss it, because all I'm trying to get at is that respectability doesn't absolve us from being respectable, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tethered to whiteness for it to be something that we aspire toward. However, I understand the nuances of how respectableness in the context that we know it in America and in the Western society particularly is almost too innately tethered to whiteness that you have to be really careful, and that's a really complex line to toe, and I get that. And so yeah, I hope that I've given more nuance to the conversation, and if there are any critiques to be made of Black women, best believe I'll be making them in private with my sisters, with my girls, with my cousins, with my family, right? The people who I love because I love them deeply, not for social media. I love them deeply, not to get video likes. And so I wanted to make that very explicitly clear. Okay, guys, I love you guys so much. And yeah, like, comment, and subscribe if you're new here. What are you even doing? Like, the bulk of y'all that watch my videos don't subscribe. And I know that that's a theme on YouTube in general, but don't play with me. Like my video, subscribe to my channel, because we'll continue to do more stuff like this. I'm about to go into a whole series on why everything is so bad in society and how Genesis gave us a blueprint for all of it and how we can respond to all of the social ills. Dating, male and female dynamics, the family dynamics. I'm about to go into so many different things, and I'm going to explore all of my bags, the therapist, the thought leader, the theologian. My goal is to explore all of them in this next series. So you should stick around and you should subscribe to this channel and hang out with me and come learn with me and explore things together. So all that in mind, love you so much. Bye, y'all.